It's truly amazing, Charles. We suddenly seem to have nothing anywhere all at once. It's a disaster. Unmitigated. How are you, Charles?
Well, it's very good to join you, Jason. I'm a little jet lagged, uh, but I look at what's happened in the last really 24 hours, and then evaluate these negative developments within the context of um, everything that Joe Biden has managed to do or that's been done in his name since January 20th, 2021. And I hearken back to 2016 after Trump won, when all we heard from the mainstream media uh, was that Trump was going to usher in World War III. Now, not only do we face the potential of World War III, but we face it at a time when we could also have an economic depression, thanks to their gross incompetence at Treasury, and I would argue now at the U.S. Federal Reserve. So this isn't even a four alarm fire. This is a four Google alarm fire, and we have dunderheads and blithering idiots in all most of the chairs currently occupied by those people posing as cabinet level members of the Biden administration, including the president and the nitwit vice president.
Yeah. It's really bad. And, before we get too into our conversation here, Charles, people are going to yell at me. And I didn't interrupt you, I will point out. But I want to make sure everybody knows that the continuing oppression here in the United States, the subversion of the First Amendment, it prevents us from talking about things that we want to discuss. So today's show is going to take place in the First Amendment Forum. People can join us for that on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. I also want to let our viewers know about charlesortel.substack.com. That is Charles' forthcoming Substack page. People are going to be, you can subscribe there right now, and Charles is going to be basically filling us in on false philanthropy, something he's been speaking about on Crowdsource the Truth and elsewhere for years. Charles, you really are widely regarded as one of the world's top experts on this subject. So I know a lot of Crowdsource the Truth viewers are looking forward to your emergence on Substack, which I believe was sort of reinvigorated by our conversation with Cy Hirsch. If people missed that, they can go back and check it out. Cy Hirsch was at the National Press Club the other night, Charles. He responded to some of this New York Times reporting that claims that some mysterious group, they're pro-Ukraine, and they just rented a boat and just sailed out there in a boat and bombed one of the most advanced, deeply submerged pipelines. But we've got a few minutes here on YouTube before we go over to the sponsor exclusive segment. A lot of people are very concerned about this banking crisis. We now have a drone interception over Russia. It seems like things are getting worse every single day, Charles, and that is why it suddenly appears that there's just nothing anywhere all at once, particularly with regard to U.S. banking.
Well, we're going to get into this in some great depth, but the short version is the following. In 2006 and 7, when I reemerged warning about a looming structural problem that would affect credit and equity markets and specifically pummel the securities of General Electric Corporation, I was concerned then about the underlying structural problem that the global economy has too much debt and the governments don't live within their means, that there's no discipline to these governments and central banks. When they screw up, they never get punished. And indeed, they take these senior positions and the officials make a lot of money for themselves and their families. I warned back in 2007, 8, and 9 that if we don't address the underlying structural problems, that is, if we don't end the war on capitalism or pretending that what passes for capitalism is in fact, I call crapitalism. It's not real capitalism. It's not where risk takers are rewarded only if they play by the rules. This is a system where people who are on the right side of their government allies and who give enough money into the campaigns of the people running for office, those people don't have to play by the rules. When they break companies badly, they just walk away and slink off into the sunset down in Palm Beach or elsewhere. Um, and so that there's no they get to keep their gains, so-called the gains are privatized, but the losses that they wreak on the global economy, on the national economies, those are socialized. The taxpayers pay for it. That is the system that was in place that nearly busted us all in 2001 with the internet bubble. It came perilously close in 2008. And now we're back again in 2023 with a team even less competent than the Biden and W. Bush administrations.
Wow.
Now saddled, unfortunately, with tens, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars of debts, counting all the advanced, in quotes, economies. And this impulse to just crush anybody who wants to actually engage in the old-fashioned private sector activity of inventing a new product or service or improving a new product or service and bringing that product or service to customers around the world. You want to do that, then Joe Biden's administration will tax you into oblivion if they don't regulate you out of existence first. And so this is a very dangerous moment now. We'll talk specifics in the behind the paywall, because it's a long topic that we can't do justice to in just a few minutes. But Biden has, there's a rumor, in fact, that the Biden administration may have actually triggered the problems at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature.
Wow.
Some believe because those banks were very actively involved in crypto world, which Biden's administration wants to slam shut. Now this financial crisis is escalating very quickly out of control at the same time that things are not going well on the battlefields in Ukraine or across the waters between Taiwan and mainland China, let alone the situation escalating or in the Middle East with Iran getting more aggressive, maybe days perhaps away from having a nuclear weapon, Kim firing off missiles. I mean, this is loony land to try to pretend that our president and his team understand what's going on, are going to move effectively to protect Americans and avert calamity.
And in addition to all that, Charles, I've been seeing a lot of people this morning saying that this China-brokered Saudi-Iran deal has even deeper implications than what you might see on the surface. The fact that China brokered this deal would seem to undercut the United States' credibility throughout the region, particularly since, we've just recently concluded a 20-year war over there that effectively did nothing other than arm the Taliban, cause a lot of people to die, basically create a big mess. And then China just rolls in there and solves what was previously thought to be an intractable problem, or at least creates the perception that they have. Seems like America is on a losing streak under Joe Biden.
Seems like the Chinese bought off the Biden family pretty cheap, doesn't it? I mean, there's the common thread here is that China is gaining at the United States' expense. And it is a well-known fact that over decades, the Chinese Communist Party, particularly in recent decades, has been aggressive in courting people they feel can help them, in paying those people off, whether they're academics, business people, or politicians, or otherwise. And no one seems in the Justice Department or the IRS to want to do anything other than jail January 6th protesters. When it comes to actual credible allegations, these are now being tendered by Representative Comer in the House, that the Biden family has long been in the corrupt, illegal employ of foreign parties. When you have those credible allegations, you just sit on them if you're the editorial board at the New York Times or the Washington Post or even the Wall Street Journal. And meanwhile, the Chinese go from, as you say, strength to strength. The degree of difficulty in reigniting diplomatic relations between Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shia Iran is about as high as anything out there. It's certainly much tougher than, for example, achieving true bipartisanship in the United States over things like protecting our southern border or perhaps reinvigorating our educational system. So look what the Chinese have done in the quiet of the night to get these two implacable doctrinal foes at least talking again via diplomatic relations. And people around the world are wondering, why does it make any sense to play along with the United States, especially mention Cy Hirsch, with the United States actually, and I suspect we did, whether directly or indirectly, blow up a significant pipeline, creating a gigantic climate disaster last year, not 8 years from now, but a gigantic one that we actually may have created last year. If they're going to do that to a Germany, why should any close ally of the United States trust the Biden administration at this point, or for that matter, any successive administration? Now, this is, to use a very technical term, this isn't even Biden's first shit show. This man is all diarrhea all the time. He ran on a no malarkey campaign. He is all diarrhea. He's all danger all the time. And quite frankly, I question whether he's fit to lead this country mentally.
Yeah.
Before addressing these problems.
And Charles, we've only got a few minutes left. I will respectfully disagree. There are some things that they're interested in doing aside from jailing January 6th suspects and furthering disinformation. They definitely want to get access to important journalists' sources. They want to discredit them. They want to basically insult constituents of Congress. We witnessed that. So they have a multitude of things that they are endeavoring to do, all of them dishonest. We're going to be talking about this and more in just a few minutes when people join us in the First Amendment Forum on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. People can also subscribe for free to charlesortel.substack.com. Charles is going to begin populating the website with new articles very soon. We haven't addressed the elephant in the hotel room, Charles. We're not going to discuss where you are, but obviously you're coming at us from an undisclosed location. Pretty exciting.
Well, the thing that's interesting, Jason, is I'm not below ground in a basement watching my washer dryer spin around. I'm actually on a high floor, in fact, the top floor of a hotel in a beautiful country. I'll reveal my location once I return.
Yeah, we don't want to give the drone operators too much information where they could surmise where you might be. Amazing, the drone activity. There's now yet another dust-up, basement-dwelling Biden and his incompetent staff. It really was interesting to listen to Cy Hirsch at the National Press Club. People can hear that on YouTube. It's remarkable, the poor quality of technology at the National Press Club, but it's always interesting to hear Cy Hirsch speak, and he's revealing more subtle details about everything, and his dissatisfaction with the state of journalism today. I hope that people will listen to that. What else would you like to share in the last minute we've got here before we go over to the First Amendment Forum, Charles?
Well, I think if we haven't already given out the address for Seymour Hersh's Substack, we should, because it's what I've actually paid to subscribe for it. I even gave a friend the subscription. It's a very I think it's a riveting read. It comes out pretty much Wednesday mornings.
Yeah. And today he's asking, who's your George Ball? He told us about his 50 years with Daniel Ellsberg. It's interesting. It's almost like a magazine dedicated to Cy Hirsch. It's an interesting evolution of journalism. And obviously, Cy Hirsch is very hot on Substack. He's told us many times that he's friends with Matt Taibbi. Taibbi has been punching back on Twitter to some of the really questionable, both of the most aggressive sort of objectionable individuals in that subcommittee are attorneys. Stacey Plaskett and is his name Adam Goldman? What's that guy's name? Dan Goldman. Adam Goldman is at the New York Times. But they're both lawyers, and it's really disgraceful how they've been, distorting the process and really abusing people's rights. But we're out of time right now, Charles. People are going to be able to join us in the First Amendment Forum in just 5 minutes. So stay with us. become a subscriber on Crowdsource the Truth, any of these platforms if you aren't already. Subscribestar, Patreon, Odyssey, or Substack, and we'll see everybody in 5 minutes to continue the conversation with Charles about nothing anywhere all at once. Stay with us. Thanks for watching, everybody.